There was a time in his life when every morning felt heavier than the last, as if the world kept adding weights to his chest while expecting him to keep breathing normally. He woke up each day carrying silent battles no one could see, wounds that never made a sound, and questions that echoed in the back of his mind like unanswered prayers. Life wasn't cruel on purpose, he realized, but it was also not gentle without reason. The people he trusted had disappointed him, the dreams he chased had slipped through his fingers, and the person he thought he was slowly began to fade into someone he no longer recognized. But in the middle of this quiet collapse, something inside him refused to break completely. It whispered to him, softly, steadily, asking him to hold on a little longer. He didn't know it then, but this whisper would become the doorway to a philosophy that would later rebuild his entire soul. And it was in this fragile stillness that his journey toward Stoicism unknowingly began. In the days that followed, he tried to outrun his thoughts, the way people run from storms, hoping the thunder inside him would quiet down if he simply ignored it. But pain has its own patience. It finds you even in crowded rooms, even behind forced smiles. He spent hours pretending everything was fine, convincing others that he was strong, while deep inside he was crumbling in slow motion. One night, unable to sleep, he stumbled upon a simple Stoic quote that felt like someone had written it specifically for him. "You suffer more in imagination than in reality." For a moment he froze. How much of his pain was from actual events, and how much from the stories he kept replaying in his mind? This question didn't heal him instantly, but it cracked something open, a small opening where light could finally enter. And through that small opening, a new understanding began to take shape. He began reading more, not out of curiosity, but out of desperation, searching for anything that could quiet the chaos inside him. The Stoics didn't talk about escaping pain, they talked about reshaping the way one faces it. Slowly, he started observing his emotions instead of drowning in them. He sat with his thoughts the way one sits beside a restless child, patient, gentle, without judgment. He realized that much of his suffering came from resisting the truth rather than accepting it. People will disappoint you, life will hurt you, plans will fall apart. But your response, that is yours to command. With this realization, he felt something shift within him, not loudly, but softly, like the first breeze before dawn. For the first time, he understood that he didn't need the world to be perfect for him to be at peace. And as this truth settled into him, his inner storm began to change its shape. He stepped into the next phase of his life with a quieter heart, not because everything was fixed, but because he no longer expected life to behave according to his wishes. He noticed how often people reacted from hurt rather than intention, how often conflicts were born from misunderstandings rather than malice. So he practiced the Stoic art of pausing, taking a breath before speaking, observing before assuming, understanding before responding. The world around him didn't change, but his way of meeting the world transformed. He stopped letting every opinion pierce him, stopped letting every problem shake him, stopped letting every moment of uncertainty define him. He learned that peace wasn't something to find, but something to build, brick by brick, choice by choice, breath by breath. And with each intentional breath, he slowly reclaimed the self he once thought he had lost. Life, however, didn't reward him with ease just because he had changed. In fact, it tested him even more, as if trying to see whether his new calmness was real or just another mask he was wearing. Old triggers returned, familiar pains resurfaced, people he trusted once again proved unreliable. But this time, something was different. Instead of reacting instantly, he allowed himself to observe. Instead of letting anger swallow him whole, he let it pass through him like a wave that had no power to stay. He started recognizing what belonged within his control and what never did. The actions of others, not in his control. The words people used to hurt him, not in his control. His own decisions, responses, and inner world, entirely his. With this clarity, his emotional boundaries grew stronger, and the version of him that once shattered under pressure now stood steady like a mountain. and with every test he endured, he discovered a quieter, deeper strength rising within him. One evening he sat alone with memories he had avoided for years, the kind of memories that ache long after the moment has passed. But this time he didn't turn away. He let each memory rise, break, and settle, like waves brushing against a lonely shore. He saw the younger version of himself trying too hard to be loved, bending too far to please others, sacrificing pieces of his soul just to feel accepted. Instead of judging that version of himself, he finally understood him. Every mistake he made, every wound he carried, every tear he hid, had shaped the wisdom he now held. He realized that healing wasn't about forgetting the past, it was about forgiving the person he once was. And as he released the weight of old regrets, a beautiful lightness flowed into him, the kind that comes only when the heart finally lets go. And in letting go, he made space for the person he was destined to become. As the weeks passed, people around him began to notice a shift, not a loud change, but a subtle, grounded calmness. He no longer reacted to negativity with the same fire. Instead, he responded with clarity and intention. When someone tried to provoke him, he didn't feel the need to defend himself. When life threw sudden obstacles his way, he didn't collapse under them. He had learned the Stoic truth that the world outside him was unpredictable, but the world within him could be trained to remain steady. He stopped chasing validation, stopped explaining his worth, and stopped carrying burdens that were never his. The peace he built within himself became his armor. Silent, invisible, unshakable. He realized that the strongest person in the room is not the one who speaks the loudest, but the one who needs no reaction to stand firm. And with this new inner silence, he stepped deeper into the strength he once thought he lacked. Yet even with all this growth, there were nights when his heart grew heavy again, not because he was weak, but because he was human. Healing, he learned, was not a straight line. Some evenings old wounds reopened without warning. Some mornings doubt returned like an unwelcome guest. But unlike before, he didn't fear these moments anymore. Instead, he welcomed them as reminders that growth is a journey, not a destination. He let himself feel, fully, honestly, without collapsing under the weight of emotion. He embraced the Stoic truth that discomfort is a teacher, not an enemy. And each time he faced his shadows without running away, he emerged a little stronger, a little clearer, a little more connected to the person he was becoming. And it was in these quiet battles that he realized true strength is built in darkness, long before it is seen in the light. As he continued walking this inner path, he began to understand life with a deeper softness, a kind of wisdom that doesn't shout but whispers. He realized that every person he had met, whether gentle or harsh, had been a silent teacher. The ones who hurt him taught him boundaries. The ones who left taught him self-reliance. The ones who stayed taught him gratitude. And the moments that broke him taught him how to rebuild himself from the inside out. He no longer needed apologies to heal, nor explanations to move forward. He found peace in acceptance, strength in surrender, and clarity in the simple truth that he could shape his inner world even when the outer world refused to change. He finally understood that the journey of the soul is not about winning against life, but about understanding oneself within it. And with this gentle wisdom, he sensed that his story was reaching its most meaningful chapter. And when he finally reached this last chapter of his journey, he understood the true essence of Stoicism, not as a philosophy of silence, but as a philosophy of inner freedom. He realized that no matter how unpredictable life became, he always had the power to choose his response, his attitude, and his inner peace. He looked back at the version of himself who had once felt lost, broken, and unseen, and he felt nothing but gratitude. Because without those hardships, he would have never discovered the calmness, the clarity, and the quiet strength he now carried within him. Standing in this new light, he offered one final message to anyone who had ever struggled the way he once did. You are stronger than your storms, wiser than your past, and more capable than your fears. Allow you to believe. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support brings these healing messages to life.